Okay, so now that we have our C major scale all mapped out, I want to talk about what is known as creating triads. Okay, so what a triad is a 3-note chord. So you might know some of these chords without realizing that they're triads. They're any of your open chords on the guitar, you know, like you strum like an E minor chord, that's based off of 3 notes, believe it or not. So if you play like a G chord or an open D chord or an A chord or anything like that, all of those chords are based off of just 3 notes. So real quick, I want to just take a second and explain that a triad isn't any 3 random notes. It is made up of the first note, the third note, and the 5th note of any scale, okay? So it's known as 1, 3, and 5. So this 1, this 3, and this 5 is part of the larger 7, and all of these numbers that are associated with it are known as scale degrees. So I'm going to show you how to construct these triads using the notes in the C major scale right now. So let's start by building a C major chord. So using C major as an example, we're going to go 3 notes up from C to find our first third. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. If I start with C and then I count up from C, including C as the 1, so I go C and then D and then all the way up to E, that's going to be what's known as my first third in this major chord that I'm building. Yes, that's spoiler alert, it's going to be a major chord because it's C major. But we have C and then we have E. And I want to explain the significance of this. If you notice in the scale, it's a whole step from C to D, and then it's another whole step from D to E. All right? Now this is also a specific measurement. This measurement is what we know as a major third, okay? So 2 whole steps equals a major third. So what's really cool about this is that we can find our next third the same way, okay? So we start from the last note that we left off on. So that would be E. So going over from C, D, E, we treat E like this fake root note now, and we count up 3 from E, including E. So we have E, F, and G. So that's going to be the 3rd note in our triad. So we're taking the first note, we're taking the 3rd note, and we're taking the 5th note, and we're putting them all together. When you do that, you'll hear how there's this pleasant sound that occurs from it, as shown in this example right here on guitar. Okay, so like I was saying before, we're just gonna take the root and stack on top of it the 3rd and the 5th. So root on the bottom, 3rd on top of that, 5th on top of that. So we have, in this case, I'm gonna use the 8th fret on the low E string for starters. So that's our root note C. And then I need to find a 3rd. So a 3rd from C is gonna be C, D, E, right? So 1, 2, 3, C, D, E. I find E right above it right here. Let's hear that together actually at the same time. So that's the sound of a major third. Hopefully you can hear how happy that kind of sounds, as opposed to a minor third. So if I flatten this a half step back, that makes a very sad sounding interval. Anyway, so we have the root, we have the 3rd, and now we need to find the 5th. So to find the 5th, you go C, D, E, F, and we land on G. So we just count up 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. C, D, E, F, G. So where we find that on the guitar, there's our G. So there's our 5th. And there is our slightly out of tune C major triad. So let's do that on an open chord now. Same chord, just different voicing, right? So we have our tried and true open C major chord. And we're starting with the root note. Okay. There's our 3rd, that's gonna be E. And then our 5th is G, right here, the open G string. So do you hear how that sounds really pleasant? Like they are meant to be together? Like they are in complete harmony? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at with all this. This is known as diatonic harmony. We are harmonizing a diatonic scale in degrees of thirds to produce these types of chords. Okay, so we've got our first triad mapped out. Starting from C, we have C, E, and G, and playing all those notes at the same time results in a C major chord. It's very pleasant sounding. It doesn't sound sad, it doesn't sound scary or anything like that. It has a very happy kind of mood to it, if that makes sense. Okay, so I want to break down intervals one more time for this first chord, just so you fully understand this kind of formula, and then you can apply it to every other chord, more or less. So we have the distance from C to E, right? So our root and our third, that's going to be 2 whole steps. If you remember what I was saying before, that means it's going to be a major third distance, okay? It's going to be the measurement of a major third. Now, immediately following that, if you see the distance from E to G, it's actually going to be a whole and a half step away. It starts on a half step, so it's a half step from E to F, and then immediately it's a whole step from F to G. So that's no longer 2 whole steps, right? That's a whole and a half step. We actually call that a minor third. So a minor third is a whole and a half step. And just to kind of hammer this home, what's cool is that when you build your first major chord, intervallically speaking, you'll see how it's a major third immediately followed by a minor third. And that's what it looks like for the C major chord. We have a major third from C to E, and then a minor third from E to G. That's how it's going to be for every major chord in this particular key.